NY, which is the distortion tax, distortionary tax. So lump sum tax, the reason that we say lump sum tax does not affect the, is considered to be non-distortionary tax because it doesn't affect the private sector incentive to invest in the input good, whereas the tax on the output, which is the NY, it distorts the behavior of both the producer and the consumer. So you have the left-hand side of the equation is the government expenditure, and on the right-hand side is the government taxation, and both are in the balanced budget. And following the Professor Barrow, using the isoelastic utility function, we can show that the long-run economic growth rate would depend on the G over Y, which is the proportion of productive government expenditure as the proportion of output, and also the tax rate, 1 minus tax rate. So you can see that the basically this equation say that productive expenditure should have the positive impact on growth because the G over Y is a positive number, and the distortionary tax, which is the T, should have the negative impact on growth. So you see that the summary is that the predicted sign, according to the endogenous growth theory, is that productive expenditure should have a positive impact on growth, and the distortionary tax should have a negative impact on growth. But here you don't see the C, and you don't see the L. That means that under the theory, we say that the non-productive expenditure should not have impact on growth, and the non-distortionary tax should not have an impact on growth. So this is the conceptual framework. So this is the model, the endogenous growth theory model predict the following, that growth rate is a decreasing rate, has a negative relationship with the distortionary tax, and positive relationship with the government productive expenditure, and it would be unaffected by the non-distortionary tax and the non-productive expenditure. So this is the theoretical prediction. But the study, I also include that at some time the government does not balance the budget all the time. So we also include the B budget surplus variable into the spending. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's a variable B that introduced into the government budget constraint, that sometimes the government run budget surplus, B being positive, and sometimes the government run budget deficit, B being negative. But the predicted sign for the budget surplus is 0 because it's not in the equation here. But we are interested to learn what would be the impact of budget, government fiscal balance on the economic output. But the predicted sign should not be should be 0. And so for the empirical testing, I test the growth rate at time t is a function of a conditioning variable, non-fiscal variable y, and also the fiscal variable x. And I will elaborate more on what is fiscal variable and what is a non-fiscal variable. What are the non-fiscal variables? So what are the fiscal policy components? So we have the fiscal policy component. We have the budget surplus. We have the, this is classified according to how Professor Barrow, he classified what is distortionary taxation. Basically is an income-based tax. They say that income-based tax is a distortion because it affects the incentive for production, affect the incentive to work. And we have the non-distortionary taxation, which is the taxation on the domestic good and sales tax, because it distort the production incentive less. And we have other revenue, which is mainly international trade tax. And also on the productive expenditure, we have the spending on general public service. We have the defense, education, health, housing, transport. Those are considered to be productive expenditure. And unproductive expenditure are the welfare spending, social security, welfare expenditure, expenditure on recreation, expenditure on economic service, and other expenditure. So going back to what I have mentioned, according to endogenous growth theory, we would say, we would make the prediction that budget surplus should not be significant, and distortionary tax should be negative. Non-distortionary tax would be not significant, other revenue not significant, and productive expenditure should have a positive, significant relationship